The physician's hands trembled as he drew back the white sheet, revealing my 16-year-old son's face. It was unrecognizable, swollen and bruised, with purple blood caked around his eye sockets where his sightless, clouded eyes once were. 3 adult men had done this with baseball bats to a boy who couldn't even perceive their approach. My name is Victor, and just 22 hours prior, I was merely a retired individual leading a tranquil existence in a respectable neighborhood outside Detroit. I operated a small security consulting business from my residence and meticulously mowed my lawn every Saturday. Each evening, I assisted my son, Oliver, with his homework. Oliver lost his vision at the age of 9 due to a brain tumor. The surgery preserved his life but claimed his sight. He adapted to the change with remarkable resilience, far better than I ever could have. He mastered Braille within 6 months and memorized every street and corner of our neighborhood, exhibiting an independent, courageous, and incredibly stubborn spirit. It was therefore an immense shock when my phone rang at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and a voice on the other end stated, "Mr. Hayes, this is Detroit Memorial Hospital. Your son has been admitted for emergency surgery." My entire world ground to a halt. "What happened?" I asked, my voice flat and cold, an old learned composure returning. "He was assaulted. Sir, you need to come now." I have no recollection of the drive to the hospital. I do remember my wife, Morgan, screaming in anguish when I relayed the news, and my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I remember pulling into the emergency bay and sprinting through the sliding doors as if my legs were aflame. A nurse attempted to prepare me. "Mr. Hayes, he's stable, but the injuries are severe." "Where is he?" I demanded. She guided me down a corridor that reeked of disinfectant and fear, each step feeling like an arduous trek through quicksand. Upon reaching the ICU, a police officer, a young man who appeared visibly nervous, stood outside the room. "Are you the father?" he inquired. I nodded. "We'll require a statement, but the doctor wishes to speak with you first." Dr. Nathaniel Ross met me at the door. He was in his mid-50s, with a gray beard and eyes that had evidently witnessed too much suffering. He offered no sugarcoating. "Your son has 3 fractured ribs, a cracked skull, internal abdominal bleeding, and his left arm is broken in 2 places. We've managed to stop the bleeding, but the next 48 hours are critical." "May I see him?" I asked. He hesitated. "Mr. Hayes, it's not easy to see your child in this state." "I've seen worse," I replied, though the truth was I hadn't, not when it was my own son. He opened the door, revealing the rhythmic beeping of machines, an array of tubes, bandages covering most of Oliver's head, his left arm suspended in a cast by wires, and his chest rising and falling too slowly. I approached the bed, sat in the chair beside him, and placed my hand on his right hand, the only part of him that didn't appear broken. "Dad," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I'm here, buddy. I'm right here." His fingers weakly squeezed mine. "3 guys. I was walking home from the library. They said I was in their territory." His breath hitched as pain and fear poured out. "I told them I was just walking. I didn't know." Then one of them laughed and said it didn't matter. They wanted to teach him a lesson. My jaw tightened. "Did you see them, Dad?" "I can't see." A foolish question, yet Oliver continued. "I heard them. One was called Blake, another kept calling someone Dominic, The third guy, Evan, I think. Blake said, Gretch, grab the bats. I tried to run, but I tripped. They caught me. He didn't need to finish. The implication was clear. They hit me, over and over. I begged them to stop. I told them I was blind. Blake laughed and said that made it easier. Something within me fractured, something I had kept suppressed for 5 years since departing Delta Force. The part of me trained to hunt, to neutralize threats, to end lives without hesitation. Yet, I inhaled slowly, deliberately. You're safe now, Oliver. I promise you this will be handled. Morgan then burst into the room, her face streaked with tears, collapsing beside the bed and grasping Oliver's other hand, sobbing uncontrollably. The police officer, Detective Adrian Cole, a man in his mid-40s with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his shirt, entered. Mr. Hayes, I need to ask your son some questions. Oliver recounted everything. The names, the assault, the location near Riverside Park, 2 blocks from our home. Adrian diligently noted it all, then sighed. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Hayes. Without witnesses, these cases are difficult. Kids and gangs, they don't talk. Nobody saw anything. Nobody knows anything. My son just told you their names. First names, in a neighborhood with 100 Blakes and Dominics. I'll do what I can. Then do more than you can, I urged. Adrian looked at me, a searching gaze. Perhaps he perceived something in my eyes, or perhaps not. But he nodded and departed. Morgan remained with Oliver while I stepped outside. The hospital hallway felt too bright, too pristine, too normal, given the recent events. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter, Paige, who was away at college in Ohio. Dad, is Oliver okay? Mom just called me crying. I'm coming home. I did not reply immediately. I sought out the hospital chapel, which was empty and quiet. I sat in the back pew. I was no longer a violent man. I had forsaken that life, choosing family, peace, and normalcy. But 3 men had just beaten my blind son with baseball bats and laughed as they did so. And somewhere in this city, they walked free. I closed my eyes, took another deep breath. Justice first, the right way, legal clean. But if the system faltered, I would ensure they understood whom they had chosen to harm. The next 48 hours dragged on like weeks. Oliver survived the surgery, but he rarely spoke. When he did, it was only to inquire if the lights were on. He could no longer discern it. The head trauma had caused damage that surgeons could not repair with scalpels. Morgan remained at the hospital continuously. I returned home only once, to shower and change. The house felt alien, unsettling. Oliver's backpack still lay by the front door, where he had left it before walking to the library. His white cane leaned against the wall. I picked it up, noticing blood on the handle. It was then that Paige entered. She had driven 6 hours directly from Ohio. When she saw me holding the cane, she broke down. I held her as she wept into my shoulder. Who would do this to him, Dad? He never hurt anyone. I had no answer, at least none that made sense. The following morning, I drove to Riverside Park. It was early, the sun just rising, mist still clinging to the grass. I easily located the spot. Bloodstains on the concrete path and a fractured piece of wood, part of a baseball bat, lying in the bushes. I documented everything with my phone. There were houses nearby. Surely someone must have witnessed something. I knocked on the first door. An elderly woman answered, the chain lock still engaged. I'm Victor Hayes. My son was attacked here 2 days ago. Did you see or hear anything? Her face paled. I'm sorry. I didn't see nothing. She closed the door before I could utter another word. I received the same response at the next 3 houses. Fear. No one wanted to speak. At the 5th house, a young mother named Brooke opened the door. A toddler perched on her hip. She nervously glanced around before whispering, I saw it. I called 911, but I can't testify. Those boys work for Tristan Cole. He runs everything in this neighborhood. If I talk, my family's in danger. Tristan Cole? I repeated. Who is he? A local crime boss. Drugs, protection rackets, you name it. Blake, Dominic, and Evan are his enforcers. They've been terrorizing people for years. You have a doorbell camera, I noticed. She hesitated. I do? Did it catch anything? Her eyes welled with tears. Everything. But if I give it to you, I'll make sure your name stays out of it. Please. That was my 16-year-old blind son they beat. She covered her mouth, tears overflowing. She nodded, went inside, and returned with a USB drive. This footage auto-uploads to the cloud. I downloaded it before I got scared. Nobody knows I have this. I took the drive. Thank you. Back at the hospital, I handed the USB to Detective Adrian. He inserted it into his laptop in the waiting room. The footage was remarkably clear. The timestamp read 3:12 p.m. Oliver walked with his cane, careful and slow. Then 3 young men in their early 20s emerged from behind a van, surrounding him. Words were exchanged. Then Blake, the tallest one, shoved Oliver, who stumbled and attempted to walk away. That's when Dominic pulled a wooden baseball bat from his backpack. What followed made Adrian turn away from the screen. Oliver was on the ground, curled up, as 3 bats swung, repeatedly. Oliver's cane rolled across the pavement, his arms raised defensively to protect his head, and they were laughing. The assault lasted 93 seconds. When they finally ceased, they high-fived each other and walked away as if nothing had occurred. Oliver did not move for another 2 minutes before someone off-camera rushed to help. Adrian closed the laptop, his hands trembling. I'll have them arrested by tonight. Good. But it wasn't that simple. By evening, Adrian called me. We picked up Blake Morrison, Dominic Fletcher, and Evan Price. All 3 are in custody. Arraignment tomorrow morning. I was at the courthouse promptly at 8 a.m., as was Morgan. Paige remained with Oliver. The courtroom was cold, sterile. The 3 attackers stood, broad-shouldered and shackled in orange jumpsuits. Blake appeared bored, Dominic stared at the ceiling, and Evan, the youngest, seemed nervous. Their lawyer, a sharply dressed woman named Quinn Harper, rose confidently and unfazed. Your Honor, my clients are being charged based on unreliable witness testimony and questionable video evidence. We request bail be set reasonably. The prosecutor, a tired-looking man named Grant Matthews, countered. These men brutally assaulted a disabled minor with deadly weapons. They're a danger to the community. The judge, an older man named Judge Raymond Grant, barely glanced up from his papers. Bail is set at $50,000 each. Next case, Morgan gasped. That's it? I watched as all 3 posted bail within 2 hours, their families having paid. By noon, they were walking out of the courthouse free. Blake observed me, standing near my vehicle, a smirk playing on his lips. Indeed, a smirk. Dominic shared a hushed comment with Evan, eliciting laughter from the trio. Quinn Harper then strode past me, her heels clicking rhythmically on the pavement. Mr. Hayes, she stated, I'd suggest you brace yourself for disappointment. Charges of this nature seldom hold. I offered no reply, simply watching them depart. That evening, I initiated a phone call, dialing a number I hadn't touched in 5 years. It rang thrice before a familiar voice responded. Victor, is that really you? Hey, Julian, I replied. Julian Cross, my former Delta Force comrade, and I had undertaken operations together in 12 different countries, saving each other's lives more times than I could count. I heard about Oliver, he said. I'm sorry, brother. I need intelligence, I stated. 3 names: Blake Morrison, Dominic Fletcher, Evan Price, and a crime boss named Tristan Cole. Are you going to war? He inquired. No, I affirmed. I'm going to legally bring them down, but I need to understand whom I'm up against. Give me 24 hours. Julian called back in just 12 hours. Tristan Cole is quite a character, he began. He operates a network of dealers and enforcers throughout Detroit. Blake, Dominic, and Evan are low-level thugs, yet they're well protected. Tristan possesses significant connections. Police, judges, politicians. Your son wasn't a random target, Victor. That park falls within Tristan's territory. They assaulted Oliver to deliver a message to the community. A chill ran down my spine. They had targeted a blind child to instill fear in people. That's the talk on the street, Julian confirmed. I ended the call and sat in the darkness of my living room. Upstairs, Morgan was silently weeping herself to sleep. Down the hall, Paige was packing for her return to school, though she was reluctant to leave. And my son lay in a hospital bed, broken, all because some coward sought to make a point. Detective Adrian contacted me the following morning, his voice devoid of emotion. Victor, we have a problem. The defense has filed a motion to suppress the video evidence. They claim it was obtained illegally because we lacked a warrant for the doorbell footage. That's preposterous, I countered. It was provided voluntarily. I know, he responded, but Quinn Harper is skilled. She's arguing Brooke lacked the authority to share footage of a public space without informing the subjects. It's a long shot, but the judge might agree. When's the hearing? I asked. Friday. Friday arrived. I sat at the back of the courtroom, observing Quinn Harper systematically dismantle our case. The footage, our sole piece of hard evidence, was deemed inadmissible. Oliver's testimony was discounted as unreliable because he couldn't visually identify his attackers. The charges were downgraded to simple assault with a potential plea deal and probation. I left that courthouse with the stark realization that the system had failed my son. At that moment, my phone buzzed with an unknown number's text message. I stared at the message for a full minute, then screenshotted it and forwarded it to Detective Adrian. He called back within 5 minutes. I replied, having been halfway to Ohio before his call. Paige was in her dorm room when I reached her, safe but bewildered by my unannounced appearance. I didn't immediately inform her of the threat, but ensured campus security was aware and would monitor her building. Morgan called while I was driving back. Oliver was being discharged from the hospital, physically stable enough to return home, but emotionally shattered. He refused to leave his room once settled, wouldn't eat unless Morgan brought food to his bedside, and wouldn't discuss what had happened. This child, who once navigated our neighborhood independently, now rejected taking even 5 steps without someone holding his hand. A week later, we were back in court for the preliminary hearing. The prosecutor, Grant Matthews, appeared defeated before proceedings even began. Quinn Harper entered with her 3 clients, all dressed in suits, resembling college students rather than violent offenders. Judge Raymond Grant presided once more, looking bored. "Mr. Matthews, present your case," he instructed. Grant shuffled papers. "Your Honor, the victim, Oliver Hayes, positively identified the attackers by their voices. We have medical records demonstrating injury severity, consistent with the described attack. We also have witness testimony." "Hearsay," Quinn interjected smoothly. "The witness who called 911 refuses to testify. The video evidence was suppressed. All you have is the word of a blind 16-year-old who admits he never saw his attackers. He heard them." He heard their names, I thought. "Blake, Dominic, and Evan are common names, Your Honor," Quinn continued. "Without visual identification or physical evidence linking my clients to the scene, this is circumstantial at best." Judge Grant sighed. "I'm inclined to agree. Mr. Matthews, unless you possess something concrete, I'm dismissing the attempted murder charges. We will proceed with misdemeanor assault. Bail remains." Morgan rose from the gallery. "That's it? They almost killed my son." The judge banged his gavel. "Ma'am, sit down, or you'll be removed." I pulled her back into her seat. She was trembling and weeping. Outside the courthouse, Blake, Dominic, and Evan stood on the steps, laughing with their lawyer. Blake lit a cigarette, looked directly at me, and winked. That evening, I contacted a lawyer I knew from my security consulting work, Nathaniel Pierce, a former prosecutor turned defense attorney. He had an intimate understanding of the system's flaws. We met at a downtown coffee shop. "Victor, I'll be frank with you," he began. "Without that video, without willing witnesses, you're facing an uphill battle. These individuals have a capable lawyer and apparently protection from above." "Tristan Cole," I stated. Nathaniel nodded. "I've heard the name. He has connections in high places. Police who turn a blind eye, a few city council members on his payroll. If those 3 work for him, they're well covered." "So, what do I do?" I asked. "Maintain pressure on the prosecutor. Galvanize the community. Create a stir. Sometimes public outrage compels the system to act when it's reluctant to." I followed his advice, organizing a community meeting at the local recreation center. 50 people attended. Families terrorized by Tristan's crew for years, parents whose children had been threatened, business owners who paid protection money. One by one, they shared their stories. But when I inquired who would be willing to testify, to go on record, the room fell silent. An old man named Preston finally stood up. "Victor," he said, "if we want to help, but we've seen what happens to those who cross Tristan. 2 years ago, a man named Mason tried to report him to the police. His house burned down a week later. His family barely escaped. So we just let them win?" I asked. "We survive," he replied. "That's all we can do." Quote 3. "I can't testify in court," she whispered. "But I made copies of that video. If it helps you in another way, use it." I thanked her and returned home. That night, I uploaded the video to a private server and sent it to 3 local news stations, accompanied by a detailed account of Oliver's ordeal. By morning, one of them had run the story. Blind teen brutally beaten while walking home. Attackers walk free. The video went viral, not just locally but nationally. By noon, my phone was inundated with messages. Strangers offering support, advocacy groups reaching out, a few former military brothers checking in. Then I received a call from Julian. Victor, you've just painted a target on your back. Tristan won't appreciate this attention. Good, I retorted. Let him come. That's not how you were taught to think, Julian countered. You always said emotion gets you killed. This is different, I insisted. I know it is, he said. That's why I'm worried. He was right to be concerned. 2 days later, Paige called me, panicked. Dad, someone left an envelope on my car. There are pictures inside. Pictures of me walking to class, at the library, at the coffee shop. What's happening? I instructed her to remain inside and lock her doors. I contacted campus police again, but this situation had escalated. This was organized intimidation. I called Detective Adrian. They're threatening my daughter. Federal law, right? Crossing state lines. I'll contact the FBI, he confirmed. This just became their problem too. Within 24 hours, an FBI agent named Mason Clark appeared at my door. Early 40s, a sharp suit, and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mr. Hayes, threatening the family of a federal witness is a serious crime. We're initiating an investigation into Tristan Cole's organization. This has given us the opening we needed. What about my son's case? I asked. We'll run parallel investigations, he explained. If we can prove Tristan ordered the attack, everyone goes down. Blake, Dominic, Evan, and their boss. How long will that take? I inquired. Months, perhaps longer. I felt my jaw tighten. My son was a prisoner in his own home, and my daughter was being stalked. I don't have months, I stated. Mason looked me directly in the eye. I know your background, Mr. Hayes. Delta Force Black Ops, but you need to let us handle this the right way. I offered no response. He left his card and departed. That night, Oliver finally uttered more than 2 words. He came downstairs, guided by Morgan, and sat at the kitchen table. Dad, he began, I heard the news story. Everyone's talking about me. You're safe, Oliver, I assured him. That's all that matters. I don't feel safe, he confessed. I hear every sound now, every car outside, every door closing. I can't sleep. Morgan wiped her eyes. Oliver's hands were trembling. I just want them to pay for what they did, he whispered. That's all. They will, son, I promised him. Yet, even as I spoke, I wasn't convinced the system would deliver. And somewhere across town, Blake, Dominic, and Evan remained free, still laughing, still seemingly untouchable. Oliver's physical therapy commenced 3 weeks after the assault. Twice a week, Morgan drove him to the rehabilitation center. He detested it, hated feeling weak, hated needing assistance with tasks he once managed independently. The therapist, a kind woman named Ivy, worked patiently with him, rebuilding strength in his shattered arm, teaching him to walk without favoring his broken ribs. But the true damage was not physical. One night, I heard him crying through his bedroom door. Unspoken, subdued sobs that pierced my core. I tapped lightly. Oliver, please leave, Dad. Nonetheless, I pushed the door open. He sat on the edge of his bed, his face buried in his hands. I just can't endure this anymore. I can't even stroll to the mailbox without succumbing to panic. I hear footsteps behind me, and dread takes over. What kind of existence is this? I settled beside him. You've survived an ordeal most couldn't. You possess more resilience than you realize. I don't perceive myself as strong. I feel shattered. Words eluded me to mend his despair. So, I simply remained with him until sleep claimed him. Concurrently, Morgan and I found ourselves drifting apart. She harbored a fervent desire to relocate, to sell our home, to abandon Detroit, to embark on a new beginning somewhere secure. Victor, they threatened Paige. They're still at large. What are we waiting for? Justice. Justice. Her voice fractured. Our son can't sleep. Our daughter's is under constant surveillance. And you're relying on a system that has already failed us. If we flee, they win. I couldn't care less about winning. My sole concern is our family's survival. For 2 days following that argument, we maintained a strained silence. Finally, the trial date was set. 6 months in the future. Grant Matthews, the prosecutor, contacted me to prepare. Mr. Hayes, I will not deceive you. Even if we manage to bring this to trial, convictions are not guaranteed. Juries are notoriously unpredictable. Queen Harper is poised to portray your son as an unreliable witness. She will argue for reasonable doubt. What are our odds? He paused. Honestly, 50-50, perhaps less. I hung up the phone and stared blankly at the wall. It was then Julian's call came through again. Victor, I'm in town. Let's arrange a meeting. We met at an unassuming bar on the city's outskirts. Julian appeared unchanged from 5 years prior. His hair was closely cropped. Knuckles bore scars, and his eyes held an unnerving intensity. I delved deeper into Tristan Cole's activities. He has 3 city councilmen under his influence, 2 police officers on his payroll, and a judge who is indebted to him. Which judge? Raymond Grant, the very one presiding over your son's case. A chill permeated my blood. Are you certain? Tristan assisted Grant's nephew in evading a drug charge 2 years ago. He made evidence vanish. Grant owes him, which means the case was compromised from the outset. Julian leaned forward. Victor, I have a team. 5 men, all former operatives. We can make this problem disappear. Tristan, Blake, Dominic, Evan, gone. Clean, without a trace. I met his gaze. My oldest friend, the man I had entrusted with my life through a dozen war zones. No, Victor, I stated. No, I am no longer that person. And I refuse to teach my son that violence is the solution. Your son was a victim of violence, and I will secure justice for him the correct way, through the system. Julian shook his head. The system is broken, brother. Then I will mend it. He left some cash on the table and departed. I remained there by myself, nursing a drink I never finished. 2 weeks later, the community fundraiser took place. A local church spearheaded the effort to assist with Oliver's medical expenses. Hundreds of people attended, contributed, and shared our narrative. It was a comforting experience, fostering a sense that we were not alone in this struggle. Yet, amidst the event, I received a text message, an unfamiliar number again. Nice event, cute family. Drop the case, or next time it's your wife. I presented it to Agent Mason Clark. He traced the number, a burner phone, untraceable. Mr. Hayes, this is escalating. I strongly advise you to consider protective custody for your family. We will not go into hiding. Then you are assuming a significant risk. I've faced greater hazards. However, that evening I installed cameras around the house, motion sensors, and reinforced the locks. I slept with my old service weapon within arm's reach. Morgan noticed. You're preparing for war. I am preparing to safeguard my family. This is not the life I envisioned, Victor. I know. I am truly sorry. She offered no reply, simply retiring to bed. 3 days later, the story exploded. A national news outlet picked it up. Retired Delta Force soldier's blind son. Blindsided, attackers still free. My phone was incessantly ringing. Requests for interviews, podcast invitations, advocacy groups eager to champion Oliver's cause. And then it happened. The district attorney's office called. A new voice, not Grant Matthews. Mr. Hayes, this is District Attorney Fiona West. I have personally taken over your son's case. The public attention surrounding this matter has made it a priority. We are reinstating the charges to attempted murder and adding hate crime enhancements for targeting a disabled victim. What brought about this change? Let's just say, certain inconsistencies in the handling of this case have come to light. Judge Grant has recused himself. A new judge will be assigned, and we are not extending any plea deals. I experienced a feeling I hadn't known for weeks. Hope. Thank you. Don't thank me just yet. We still have to win. The new trial date was expedited, now just 3 weeks away. Blake, Dominic, and Evan were rearrested. This time, bail was denied. They would be held until trial. I watched the news footage of them being led into the county jail in handcuffs. Blake no longer wore his arrogant smirk. That night, Oliver posed a question. Dad, do you truly believe they'll go to prison? I believe we now have a genuine chance. What if they don't? I looked at my son, 16 years old, blind, scarred, yet still present, still fighting. Then we will confront that outcome when it arises. But for now, we concentrate on the battle before us. He nodded. Morgan entered the room, handed me a cup of coffee, and sat beside me. I'm sorry, I wanted to flee, she murmured softly. You were frightened. That's natural. You were scared too. You just didn't let it show. I offered a faint smile, an old habit. For the first time in weeks, we felt like a family again. But Tristan Cole remained at large. And 3 weeks until trial stretched out like an eternity. The night preceding the trial, sleep eluded me. I sat in the kitchen, meticulously replaying everything in my mind. The evidence, the testimonies, the vulnerabilities Quinn Harper would attempt to exploit in our case. My phone illuminated at 2 a.m. Paige was calling. Dad, something's happened. My heart plummeted. Are you all right? I'm fine. But campus police just arrested someone outside my dorm. He had a camera with a telephoto lens. Pictures of me, hundreds of them. Where are you right now? The police station. They want me to provide a statement. I'm on my way. I drove for 6 hours straight. Upon my arrival, Agent Mason Clark was already there. He had been monitoring the situation. The man they apprehended was Kyle Brennan, 24, a known associate of Tristan Cole. He possessed photographs of Paige spanning 3 weeks, complete with timestamps and marked locations. Mason drew me aside. This constitutes federal interstate stalking. We have him facing multiple charges, and he's talking. Talking about what? Tristan Cole. He claims Tristan ordered him to intimidate your daughter, to frighten her sufficiently that you would drop the case. We have recorded phone calls, text messages, everything. Can you use that against Tristan? We're already building the case. But here's the thing, Victor. Your son's story has once again gone national. Every news outlet is covering it now. Retired Delta Force father fighting for his blind son, while a crime boss attempts to silence him. The public is devouring it. I cared not for publicity. My concern was my family's safety. But Mason was right. By morning, the story had exploded. Social media was inundated with support for Oliver. Hashtags trended. People clamored for justice. And then something wholly unexpected occurred. District Attorney Fiona West called me. "Mr. Hayes, we need to speak privately." We met at her office. She appeared exhausted, yet resolute. "The attention on this case has forced certain hands. The mayor's office is being deluged with calls. The police commissioner is under immense pressure, and certain individuals who were protecting Tristan Cole are suddenly distancing themselves. Why? Because no one wants to be associated with the man who ordered a blind kid beaten and then stalked his sister. It's political poison." She slid a file across the desk. "Blake Morrison, Dominic Fletcher, and Evan Price are scheduled for trial in 2 days. But here's what you don't know. Evan's lawyer reached out this morning. He wants a deal." "What kind of deal?" "Full testimony against Blake, Dominic, and Tristan in exchange for a reduced sentence. He's willing to admit everything. Who ordered the attack? Why they targeted that neighborhood? All of it." I leaned back. "Why would he flip now?" "Because 3 weeks in county jail gave him time to think. He's 21 years old, facing 25 years to life. His public defender convinced him he's the youngest, the least culpable. If he cooperates, he walks in 8 to 10 years instead of dying in prison." "Do you trust him?" "I trust that he's scared, and scared people tend to tell the truth." 2 days later, I was back in court. A new judge this time, Judge Fiona Hartman. Mid-50s, sharp, with no tolerance for theatrics. The courtroom was packed. Media occupied the back rows. Community members who had followed the story, and sitting in the front, Oliver, Morgan, and Paige. Blake and Dominic were brought in first, encased in orange jumpsuits, their hands cuffed. Blake's arrogant smirk had vanished. Dominic looked pallid. Then Evan was brought in separately. He avoided meeting the gaze of the other two. Quinn Harper rose. "Your Honor, my client Evan Price has agreed to cooperate fully with the prosecution in exchange for a plea agreement." Judge Hartman nodded. "Mr. Price, do you understand that by pleading guilty and testifying, you are waiving certain rights?" Evan's voice was shaky. "Yes, Your Honor." "Proceed." Evan took the stand. The prosecutor asked him to recount the events. "Tristan Cole runs our crew. He controls 5 neighborhoods in Detroit. If someone steps out of line, we handle it. About 2 months ago, Tristan said the area near Riverside Park was getting soft. People weren't paying protection money. He wanted to send a message. What kind of message? Something violent, something public. He said, 'Pick someone weak, make an example.' My hands clenched into fists. We were driving through the area when we saw the kid, Oliver, walking alone with a cane. Blake said he looked like an easy target. We followed him for 2 blocks. Then Blake told me and Dominic to grab the bats from the trunk." "Did you know Oliver was blind?" Evan's voice dropped. "Not at first, but when we surrounded him, he told us. He said he couldn't see." With a laugh, Blake asserted that this made the task simpler. Morgan, her hand covering her mouth, wept as we assaulted him. I cannot recall how many times he fell. He pleaded with us to stop, but Blake remained relentless, determined to ensure the message was unequivocally conveyed. Following the assault, we reported back to Tristan, who remunerated us with $500 each, commending our performance. The courtroom erupted in an uproar. Judge Hartman emphatically struck her gavel. Quinn Harper attempted to cross-examine, yet Evan stood firm, recounting every detail, naming individuals, and providing specifics that only an eyewitness could possess. The lawyers for Blake and Dominic frantically requested a recess, but the damage was irreversible. Then the prosecutor unleashed a bombshell. Your Honor, based on Mr. Price's testimony, the FBI has issued a warrant for Tristan Cole's arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit assault, witness intimidation, and racketeering. Agent Mason rose from the gallery, announcing, Tristan Cole was apprehended this morning while attempting to cross the border into Mexico. He is currently in federal custody. The courtroom once again became a scene of pandemonium. Reporters scrambling to file stories, and community members cheering. I glanced at Oliver. He was crying, not from pain this time, but from profound relief. Blake and Dominic's trial was fast-tracked. Given Evan's testimony, the physical evidence, and Tristan's incarceration, their lawyers suggested plea deals, but Fiona West was resolute in her refusal. They brutally attacked a blind child with baseball bats for money. They will face trial, and I intend to ensure they are imprisoned for decades. That evening, my family and I gathered in our living room, united for the first time in weeks, free from the shadow of fear. Paige embraced Oliver, saying, You did it. You never gave up. Oliver offered a genuine smile, replying, We did it. However, the struggle was far from over. The trial still loomed, and I knew Quinn Harper would not concede without a formidable fight. Evan's agreement was finalized within 48 hours. 8 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole in 6, in exchange for his testimony against Blake, Dominic, and Tristan in every ensuing trial. Agent Mason organized a protected meeting between Evan and the prosecution team, seeking to document every detail before the trial commenced. I was permitted to attend as the victim's father. We convened in a secure FBI office downtown. Evan sat opposite me, flanked by his lawyer and a federal agent, unable to meet my gaze. District Attorney Fiona West initiated the questioning. Evan, please describe your involvement with Tristan Cole. Evan's voice was subdued. I grew up in the same neighborhood. Tristan recruited me when I was 17. He said I could earn easy money running errands. It began subtly, delivering packages, collecting debts. Then it escalated. When did it become violent? Approximately a year ago, Tristan needed muscle, individuals to enforce his rules. Blake and Dominic were already involved. They brought me in. How many assaults were you part of prior to Oliver Hayes? Evan hesitated. 5, perhaps 6. Fiona remained impassive. And Tristan ordered all of them? Yes. He would instruct us on the target, location, and severity of the assault. Sometimes it was business owners who refused payment. Sometimes it was simply people he wished to instill fear in. Describe the day you attacked Oliver. Evan finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot. Tristan called us that morning. He said he needed a statement made near Riverside Park. Someone visible. Someone vulnerable. He didn't care who. Just make it brutal. Why that park? He was losing control of the area. People had stopped paying protection. He wanted to re-establish their fear. I clenched my jaw, but remained silent. Evan continued. We drove around for an hour, searching for someone. Then we saw Oliver walking alone. Blake remarked that he appeared to be an easy target. We didn't realize he was blind until we were close. What happened when you realized? Blake didn't care. He said it made the job easier. Dominic agreed. Evan's voice faltered. I should have stopped it. I didn't. Why not? Because I was afraid of Tristan. If I refused, I would be next. Fiona leaned forward. Do you possess any proof that Tristan ordered the attack? Evan nodded. Text messages, voice recordings. I kept everything. Tristan always communicated through burner phones, but I saved the numbers, the messages. Mason took the evidence bag. Evan's lawyer has handed over a phone, cracked screen, an old model. This is everything. Everything from the last year. Tristan's orders, photos of the weapons he provided us, even the payment receipts. Mason connected the phone to a laptop, scrolling through its contents, his expression darkening. This is a goldmine. Dates, times, locations of at least a dozen criminal activities, conspiracy charges across the board. Fiona turned to me. Mr. Hayes, do you have any questions for Evan? I looked at the young man across from me, 21 years old, frightened, broken. Why did you keep swinging? Oliver was on the ground. He was begging. Why didn't you stop? Evan's face crumpled, tears streaming. I don't know. I was pumped up. Blake was yelling at us to keep going. I didn't think. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I'm sorry. I stood up. You're right. It doesn't fix anything. I walked out. The trial commenced a week later. The courtroom was even more crowded than before. National media had positioned cameras outside. Protesters held signs supporting Oliver. A few displayed signs condemning the attackers. Blake and Dominic sat at the defense table with Quinn Harper. Both appeared tense. Quinn, however, maintained her usual composure. Judge Fiona Hartman entered. This court is now in session. The People versus Blake Morrison and Dominic Fletcher. Charges include attempted murder, aggravated assault, and hate crimes enhancement. The prosecution opened forcefully. Fiona West meticulously presented the timeline, the evidence, Evan's confession, and Tristan's text messages ordering the attack. Their first witness was Brooke, the woman who had provided the doorbell footage. She was nervous but steadfast. I witnessed everything from my window. 3 men surrounding a teenager with a cane. They had baseball bats. I immediately called 911. Quinn Harper cross-examined. Did you clearly see my clients' faces? Yes. From what distance? Perhaps 50 feet. At 50 feet, can you be certain it was them? I reviewed the footage from my doorbell camera. It was them. Quinn smirked. The footage that was ruled inadmissible. Objection, Fiona stated. The footage was inadmissible in the preliminary hearing. This is a new trial under a new judge. Judge Hartman nodded. Sustained. The footage will be reviewed for admissibility in this proceeding. The footage was then played in court. The room fell silent. Even the media ceased scribbling notes. Oliver on the ground. 3 men with bats. 93 seconds of brutality. 2 jurors were weeping by the end. Quinn Harper attempted to argue the footage was prejudicial. Judge Hartman denied the motion. Next, the medical examiner testified, detailing Oliver's injuries: fractured skull, broken ribs, shattered arm, internal bleeding. In my professional opinion, had the attack continued another 30 seconds, Oliver Hayes would have died. Then Oliver took the stand. Morgan assisted him to the witness box. He sat down, his hands trembling. Fiona gently approached. Oliver, can you tell the jury what happened on the day you were attacked? Oliver's voice was quiet but clear. I was walking home from the library. I heard footsteps behind me, then voices. One of them said I was in their territory. I told them I didn't know. I was just walking home. What happened next? Someone shoved me. I stumbled. I told them I was blind. I couldn't see where I was going. One of them laughed. Then I heard something swing through the air. It hit my arm, then my ribs, then my head. Do you remember anything else? I remember begging them to stop. I remember the pain. And I remember waking up in the hospital and not knowing if I'd ever walk again. The courtroom was utterly silent. Quinn Harper stood for cross-examination. Oliver, you stated you couldn't see your attackers. How can you be certain it was my clients? I heard their names. Blake, Dominic, Evan, first names. Common first names. I heard their voices. I'll never forget their voices. Quinn paused. You're 16. You were in shock and pain. Isn't it possible you misheard? Oliver turned toward her voice. I'm blind, ma'am. My hearing is all I have. I didn't mishear. Quinn sat down, having no further questions. The trial continued for 3 more days. Evan testified. Tristan's text messages were admitted as evidence. Expert witnesses analyzed the attack patterns. By the final day, Quinn Harper appeared defeated. Closing arguments were potent. Fiona West addressed the jury directly. These 2 men beat a blind child for money. They laughed while doing it. They showed no mercy. Now it's your turn to show them what justice looks like. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. On the charge of attempted murder, guilty. Blake dropped his head. Dominic closed his eyes. Morgan squeezed my hand. Oliver sat perfectly still, listening. Justice had finally arrived. The guilty verdict reached the news within minutes. Blake Morrison and Dominic Fletcher were convicted. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks out, but one crucial piece remained missing. Tristan Cole, arrested at the Mexican border, still had a case being built against him. Agent Mason called me the day after the verdict. Victor, we need your help. With what? Tristan has properties all over Detroit. Safe houses, stash locations, places he used to run his operation. We have warrants, but finding everything is like searching for needles in a haystack. You were dealt a force. You know how to track targets. I'm retired Pon Kowotuan. I know, but your son deserves to see the man who ordered his beating go down for everything. Not just the attack, but the drugs, the weapons, the whole empire. When do we start? We've pinpointed 8 separate locations. A mix of warehouses, apartments, and even a storage facility. Evan provided us with the addresses, but Tristan is exceptionally shrewd. He meticulously compartmentalized everything. Each location only offers a partial glimpse of the overall picture. Our strategy is to strike all of them simultaneously. Precisely, I affirmed. Although I wasn't armed and lacked law enforcement credentials, Mason specifically requested my presence for my tactical acumen. My role was to interpret patterns and identify potential escape routes, skills I had honed countless times during my overseas assignments. The initial raid commenced at dawn at an East Side warehouse. The FBI breached the doors and surged inside, rifles raised. I remained outside with Mason. They discovered crates filled with illicit firearms, sufficient to equip a small militia, along with documentation directly linking the purchases back to Tristan. The subsequent location was an apartment complex, specifically a 3rd-floor unit. Upon entry, agents found 2 of Tristan's crew members rapidly destroying evidence by burning documents in the bathtub. They were immediately apprehended. Mason's phone rang. Another team had successfully raided the storage facility, unearthing 20 kilograms of cocaine, substantial stacks of cash, and a meticulously kept ledger detailing every transaction Tristan had executed over the past 3 years. "This is enough to thoroughly implicate him," Mason declared. However, Tristan's legal counsel was already actively maneuvering. Quinn Harper, who had also taken on his case, began filing motions to suppress evidence, alleging illegal search and seizure. Judge Hartman, however, systematically denied each one. "Mr. Cole, the evidence against you was acquired through valid federal warrants predicated on credible witness testimony. Your motions are denied." Tristan's trial was scheduled for 6 weeks out, but he clearly wasn't planning a quiet surrender. 2 days later, Julian contacted me. "Victor, the street rumor is that Tristan has put a bounty out, $50,000 for anyone who makes your family disappear before his trial." My blood instantly ran cold. "Are you certain?" I queried. "Absolutely positive. I have reliable sources within his former crew. They're talking. Some are avoiding the situation due to the intensity, but others, well, they need the money." I immediately telephoned Mason. Within hours, my residence was under FBI protection, with agents stationed outside 24/7. Paige was assigned a security detail at her college, and Morgan and Oliver were explicitly instructed not to leave the house without an escort. It felt as though we were prisoners once more. Yet a shift occurred. Media coverage intensified dramatically. National news outlets picked up the story of Tristan ordering a hit on a blind child's family, triggering an explosion of public outrage. The mayor held a press conference, stating, "Tristan Cole epitomizes everything that is fundamentally wrong with organized crime. This city will not tolerate threats against victims who are simply seeking justice." The police commissioner announced the formation of a special task force dedicated to dismantling the remnants of Tristan's operation. And gradually, one by one, Tristan's associates began to turn, offering testimony in exchange for reduced sentences. The empire he had painstakingly built over a decade was crumbling within weeks. The FBI subsequently raided his remaining properties, uncovering additional drugs, more firearms, and even more incriminating evidence. Each raid compounded years onto his potential sentence. Mason called me after the final raid. "We've secured everything: financial records, communication logs, and witness testimony from 9 former associates. Tristan is facing life without parole." "When is the trial?" I asked. 4 weeks. And Victor, we'd like Oliver to testify again." I hesitated. "He's already endured so much." Mason countered, "I understand, but the jury needs to witness the human cost of Tristan's directives. Your son represents the very essence of what this man did." That evening, I spoke with Oliver, sitting with him in his room. "The FBI wants you to testify against Tristan. You are not obligated to. You've already contributed more than enough." Oliver remained quiet for an extended moment before speaking. "Dad, if I don't testify, he might get away with it or receive a lighter sentence. I can't allow that to happen, not after everything." "Are you certain?" I pressed. "I'm terrified," he admitted, "but I'm certain." Morgan was displeased about the decision. "He's 16, Victor. He shouldn't have to relive this again. It's his choice," I firmly reminded her. She looked at Oliver. "Baby, You don't have to do this. Oliver gently reached for her hand. Mom, I need to, for me. 4 weeks later, Tristan Cole's trial commenced. The courtroom was once again overflowing, with a media frenzy outside. Security had been doubled due to the bounty threat. Tristan sat at the defense table in a suit, appearing remarkably calm. Too calm, as if he still harbored the belief he would walk free. Quinn Harper initiated with a predictable defense. My client is a businessman who made errors, but ordering an attack on a child, that's a leap the prosecution simply cannot prove. Fiona West then rose. We'll allow the evidence to speak for itself. Evan testified first, meticulously detailing every order Tristan gave, every payment, and every threat. Subsequently, former associates took the stand, one after another, confirming Tristan's absolute control over the crew and his directives to intimidate, assault, and eliminate problems. The financial expert presented the ledger, which displayed transactions showing payments to Blake, Dominic, and Evan on the day following Oliver's attack. Then it was Oliver's turn. He walked to the stand with his cane, Morgan guiding him. He sat down, hands respectfully folded. Fiona approached him gently. Oliver, do you know who Tristan Cole is? I know. He's the man who ordered 3 people to beat me. How do you know that? Because Evan Price informed the court. Because the evidence clearly demonstrates it. Because I'm currently sitting here with permanent injuries because someone believed that sending a message was more valuable than destroying a child's life. The jury was captivated by his words. What do you wish to say to Tristan Cole? Oliver turned towards the defense table. Although he couldn't see, he faced Tristan directly. I was merely walking home. I had no knowledge of territories or gangs or power. I was just a child trying to get home before dinner. You stole that from me. You deprived me of my safety, my independence, my trust in people. I will bear that burden for the remainder of my life. And I sincerely hope you bear it too. The courtroom was enveloped in silence. Quinn Harper chose not to cross-examine. Tristan's fate was unequivocally sealed. The prosecution spent 3 more days meticulously presenting evidence. Text messages, financial records, and testimony from former crew members. Every single piece of evidence pointed directly to Tristan Cole as the architect of Oliver's attack and a multitude of other crimes. Quinn Harper fought back vigorously, attacking witness credibility, questioning the chain of evidence, and portraying Tristan as a scapegoat for a broken system desperately seeking someone to blame. However, the jury remained unconvinced. On the 4th day, Fiona West called a surprise witness, someone whose name was conspicuously absent from the original trial documents. The prosecution calls Detective Adrian Cole to the stand. I froze. Cole, the same surname as Tristan. Adrian walked towards the witness box, visibly uncomfortable. He was sworn in and took his seat. Fiona approached. Detective Cole, what is your relationship to the defendant? Adrian's jaw tightened. Tristan Cole is my younger brother. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Judge Hartman banged her gavel for order. Quinn Harper shot to her feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. The prosecution is ambushing the defense with... Sit down, Miss Harper, Judge Hartman stated firmly. Detective Cole is here voluntarily. Continue, Miss West. Fiona turned back to Adrian. When did you learn your brother was involved in criminal activity? I've known for years. I tried to ignore it. tried to convince myself he was merely making poor choices. But when Oliver Hayes was attacked, and I was assigned the case, I could no longer ignore it. What action did you take? I investigated. Even though it was my brother's crew, even though I knew what I would uncover, I meticulously gathered evidence. I handed it over to the FBI and testified before a grand jury to facilitate his indictment. Why are you testifying now? Because I swore an oath to uphold the law, not to shield criminals, not even when they are family. My brother ordered a brutal attack on a blind teenager. For years, he has terrorized our community. That ends today. Quote, 4. You genuinely expect this jury to believe you testify against your own brother? I expect nothing. I'm simply telling the truth. Isn't it true that you have always resented Tristan? That you were envious of his success? Adrian's voice remained steady. My brother's success was constructed upon fear, drugs, and violence. There is nothing to be jealous of. I'm ashamed that we share a name. Quinn had no effective rebuttal, but then she made a motion that stunned everyone. Your Honor, I would like to call a character witness for the defense, Judge Raymond Grant. My head snapped up. The very judge who had initially presided over Oliver's case, the one who had recused himself. Judge Hartman appeared skeptical. This is highly unusual, she conceded. But proceed. Raymond Grant took the stand. A man in his late 60s, with gray hair and an expensive suit. He appeared calm, almost smug. Quinn approached Judge Grant. How long have you known Tristan Cole? Approximately 5 years. He has engaged in meaningful charity work within the community, generously donated to youth programs, and assisted families in need. I desperately wanted to stand up and scream, but Morgan gripped my hand firmly. Would you characterize him as a violent man? Not at all. Tristan has consistently been respectful, generous, even kind. Fiona rose for cross-examination, her expression utterly icy. Judge Grant, isn't it true that Tristan Cole assisted your nephew in evading drug trafficking charges 2 years ago? Grant's face paled. I don't know what Your nephew, Blake Grant, was apprehended with 3 kilograms of cocaine in his vehicle. The evidence inexplicably vanished from the police evidence locker. A week later, charges were dismissed. Is that not correct? Quinn swiftly objected. Objection, relevance. Your Honor, Fiona stated calmly, this directly pertains to witness credibility and potential bias. Judge Hartman nodded. Overruled. Answer the question, Judge Grant. Grant shifted uncomfortably. There was insufficient evidence to... Yes or no? Did Tristan Cole arrange for that evidence to disappear? Grant's voice dropped. Fiona then produced a document. This is a sworn affidavit from former evidence clerk Marcus Lang. He states that Tristan Cole paid him $10,000 to destroy evidence in Blake Grant's case. He also states that you personally thanked Tristan at a private dinner 2 weeks later. The courtroom erupted once more. Judge Hartman rose, addressing Judge Grant. Judge Grant, you are excused from this witness stand, and you should be aware that the Judicial Ethics Board will be receiving a full report on this testimony. Raymond Grant's face turned stark white. He stumbled from the witness box and exited the courtroom. Quinn Harper, for the first time, appeared visibly shaken. Judge Hartman then addressed the jury. You will disregard Judge Grant's testimony entirely. It has been impeached. However, the damage to Tristan's defense was irreparable. His own character witness had just been exposed as corrupt. Fiona wasn't finished. Your Honor, the prosecution has one more witness. We call Blake Morrison. Blake, the individual who orchestrated the assault on Oliver and was currently serving a 25-year sentence, was escorted in, wearing prison orange and wrist shackles. He sat in the witness box, looking utterly broken. Fiona approached him. Mr. Morrison, you were convicted of assaulting Oliver Hayes. Who ordered that attack? Blake's voice was barely audible. Tristan Cole. Did he pay you $500 cash the day after? Yes. Why are you testifying now? Blake looked directly at Tristan, devoid of any defiance, only exhaustion. Because I'm already serving 25 years. Lying for him won't change that. And maybe if I tell the truth, it'll mean something. Quinn had no questions for him. Closing arguments commenced the following day. Fiona West stood before the jury. Tristan Cole built an empire on fear. He ordered violence, intimidation, and terror to maintain control. Oliver Hayes was just one victim among dozens. But Oliver fought back. His family fought back. And now it's your job to hold this man accountable for every life he destroyed. Quinn Harper made a final attempt. The prosecution wants you to believe Tristan Cole is a monster. But the evidence is circumstantial. Testimony from criminals trying to save themselves. Don't let emotion cloud your judgment. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. On the charge of conspiracy to commit assault, guilty. On the charge of racketeering, guilty. On the charge of witness intimidation, guilty. Guilty on all 17 counts. Tristan buried his face in his hands. Quinn sank into his seat, defeated. Morgan burst into tears. Oliver sat quietly, allowing the news to fully register. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I delivered a brief statement. Justice was served. That's all that matters. But I knew the real battle wasn't over yet. Sentencing was still to come, and I intended to be present when Tristan learned his fate. Sentencing day arrived 3 weeks later. The courtroom filled early. Victims of Tristan's other crimes came to observe. Community members who had lived in fear for years. And us, Oliver, Morgan, Paige, and me. Blake Morrison and Dominic Fletcher were scheduled to be sentenced first. They were brought in separately, both in prison uniforms, both appearing as mere shadows of the arrogant young men who had smirked outside the courthouse months ago. Judge Hartman reviewed their cases. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Fletcher, you were both convicted of attempted murder, aggravated assault, and hate crimes. The evidence showed a brutal, unprovoked attack on a disabled minor. Do you have anything to say before sentencing? Dominic spoke first, his voice cracking. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. Blake remained silent, staring at the floor. Judge Hartman's expression was unwavering. The court sentences Blake Morrison to 27 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 20 years. Dominic Fletcher, you are sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 18 years. The gavel struck. Both men were led away. Then it was Tristan's turn. He was led in, once again in a suit, but it no longer mattered. He appeared diminished, defeated. Judge Hartman addressed the courtroom. Before I pass sentence, the victims have the right to make impact statements. Who wishes to speak? Fiona West rose. Your Honor, The Hayes family would like to address the court. Morgan approached the podium first, her hands trembling, yet her voice was strong. Tristan Cole, you didn't just hurt my son. You hurt my entire family. You took away our sense of safety, our peace. For months, we lived in fear. My daughter was stalked. My husband was threatened. And my son, her voice broke. My 16-year-old son will never be the same. He has nightmares. He's terrified to leave the house. You did that not for survival, not for protection, but for money and power. I hope you think about Oliver every single day you spend in prison. She returned to her seat, tears streaming. Page followed. I'm 19 years old. I should be focused on school, friends, my future. Instead, I spent months looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone was going to hurt me because my brother was brave enough to seek justice. You're a coward, Mr. Cole, and I hope you rot. Then Oliver stood. Morgan helped him to the podium. He placed his hands on the wood, facing forward, even though he couldn't see the man who had shattered his life. My name is Oliver Hayes. I'm 16 years old and I'm blind. On the day your men attacked me, I was walking home from the library. I didn't know about gangs or territories. I was just trying to get home before dinner. They beat me with baseball bats until I couldn't move. I begged them to stop. They laughed. His voice was steady, clear, powerful. I spent weeks in the hospital, months in physical therapy. I still can't walk outside without panicking. I still wake up hearing the sound of those bats hitting me. You took my childhood. You took my independence. But you didn't take my voice. And I'm using it now to make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are. A man who orders children beaten to prove a point. I hope you spend the rest of your life thinking about what you did to me. The courtroom was silent. Even the reporters had stopped typing. Oliver turned and walked back to his seat, guided by Morgan. I had never been prouder of him. Judge Hartman looked at Tristan. Mr. Cole, do you wish to make a statement? Tristan stood slowly. For a moment I thought he'd apologize, show some remorse. Instead, he spoke with cold arrogance. I didn't order anyone to attack that kid. I'm being railroaded by a system that needed a scapegoat. I'm innocent. Judge Hartman's jaw tightened. Mr. Cole, a jury of your peers reviewed the evidence and found you guilty on 17 counts. The evidence was overwhelming. You ran a criminal enterprise that terrorized this city for years. You ordered violence, distributed drugs, and intimidated witnesses. And when a blind teenager was beaten nearly to death, you tried to silence his family. She opened a folder. The court has reviewed your criminal history, the victim impact statements, and the sentencing guidelines. Tristan Cole, you are hereby sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, you will serve consecutive sentences for witness intimidation, racketeering, and drug trafficking, totaling an additional 40 years. Tristan's face went white. This means, Mr. Cole, you will die in prison. You will never again walk free. You will never again terrorize a community. Bailiff, remove him. Tristan was led away in handcuffs, shouting obscenities. The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Hartman did not intervene this time. Outside, the media surrounded us, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. A reporter shouted, "Mr. Hayes, how do you feel now that justice has been served?" I stepped forward, keeping my response concise. Justice was served. Now my family heals. Another reporter called out, Do you think the sentence was fair? Fair would have been my son never getting attacked in the first place. But this is as close to justice as we can get. What message do you have for other victims of violence? I looked directly at the camera. Don't give up. The system isn't perfect, but it can work if you fight for it. Stand up, speak out, and don't let fear win. We walked away from the cameras, from the courthouse, from the nightmare that had consumed our lives for months. That night, we had dinner together as a family, all four of us. No reporters, no lawyers, no threats, just us. Oliver actually smiled, a genuine, real smile. It's over, isn't it? It's over, I confirmed. Paige raised her glass of water. To Oliver, the bravest person I know. We clinked glasses. Morgan squeezed my hand under the table. Later that night, I stood on the back porch looking out at the yard, the same yard Oliver used to run through when he was younger. Before the tumor, before the blindness, before the attack. Julian called. I saw the news. Life without parole. That's a win, brother. It is. You did good, Victor. You fought the right way. I had no choice. I couldn't teach my son that violence solves problems. No, but you taught him that justice is worth fighting for. That's better. I hung up and went inside. Oliver was in his room listening to an audiobook. Morgan was reading in bed. Paige was video calling friends, laughing. Normal. Finally, normal. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up to check the locks. The nightmare was over, but the healing was just beginning. The media attention faded after a few weeks. The cameras disappeared. The reporters moved on to the next story, but for us, life continued quietly, slowly rebuilding what had been shattered. Oliver's physical therapy became a routine. 3 times a week, Morgan drove him to sessions with Ivy. His shattered arm regained strength. His ribs healed, but the invisible scars took longer. He still flinched at loud noises, still hesitated before leaving the house. Yet, gradual triumphs began to emerge. Just 60 days after the verdict, Oliver requested my companionship for a brief walk, merely 2 blocks to the local corner store. He leaned on his cane with one hand while gripping my arm with the other. You don't have to hold on if you don't want to, I offered. I know, he replied, but I want to. Our pace was unhurried. Initially he was tense, his senses acutely attuned to every passing car and every footfall. However, by the time we reached our destination, his shoulders had visibly relaxed. I did it, he whispered. Yes, you did, I affirmed. Morgan immersed herself in advocacy. She established connections with organizations dedicated to supporting victims of violent acts. She started sharing our narrative at community gatherings, offering guidance to other families, navigating the complexities of the legal framework. She discovered a profound purpose in her suffering, transforming it into something significant. Paige resumed her college studies, but altered her academic focus. She had previously pursued business, but now her aspiration was to study criminal justice, aiming to become a victim's advocate. Oliver truly inspired me, she conveyed during a video call. If he can dedicate himself so fiercely to justice, I want to assist others in doing the same. I returned to managing my security consulting firm, though the nature of my work had fundamentally shifted. Families who had encountered our story reached out to me, seeking help with neighborhood crime, domestic threats, and stalking. I assisted them in formulating safety strategies, collaborated with local police forces, and connected them with vital resources. I was no longer a soldier. I had evolved into something more profound, a protector, yet without the need for weaponry. 3 months post-sentencing, a letter arrived bearing the federal prison postmark and addressed from Evan Price. I nearly discarded it, but my curiosity prevailed. Mr. Hayes, the letter read, I recognize I am undeserving of forgiveness. I don't anticipate it, but I felt it was important for you to know that every single day I spend here, I reflect on what I did to Oliver. I've begun counseling with a prison therapist, striving to comprehend why I followed Tristan, why I didn't intervene when I clearly should have. I will be incarcerated for the next 6 years. I'm utilizing this period to become a different person, a better one. I am working towards my GED and participating in anger management classes. One day, upon my release, I aspire to assist young individuals like myself in avoiding the detrimental choices I made. I apologize if this word feels hollow, but it is all I possess. Evan Price. I presented the letter to Oliver. He read it with his fingertips, tracing the Braille transcription that Morgan had meticulously prepared for him. What are your thoughts? I inquired. Oliver remained silent for a considerable duration. I believe people can change, he finally responded, but that doesn't erase their past actions. Do you forgive him? I pressed. I don't know yet. Perhaps someday, but not today. His answer was entirely reasonable. With the arrival of spring, our neighborhood gradually began to feel like home once more. The FBI's concerted efforts against Tristan's organization had effectively dismantled the gang's influence over the area. Families experienced a renewed sense of security, and children once again played freely in the parks. A community center opened its doors near Riverside Park, precisely the location where Oliver had suffered the attack. The city renamed it the Hayes Community Center, honoring Oliver's courage. We attended the dedication ceremony, where the mayor delivered a speech. This center symbolizes resilience, he declared. It represents a community that refused to be subjugated by fear, and it embodies one young man's bravery in rising up to demand justice. Oliver stood at the podium, with Morgan at his side. He spoke without relying on notes, his voice unwavering. I never sought to be a symbol. All I desired was to walk home from the library. But if my story empowers even one individual to find the courage to speak out, to resist violence, then perhaps something positive emerged from something truly terrible. The crowd erupted in applause. That summer, Oliver undertook an action that astonished us all. He enrolled in a program dedicated to training guide dogs for the visually impaired. He was determined to reclaim his independence, but on his own terms. The day he was introduced to his guide dog, a golden retriever named Copper, I witnessed an expression on his face that had been absent for over a year. Pure joy. Copper transformed everything. With the dog faithfully by his side, Oliver began to venture out independently once more, walking to the library, meeting friends, and ultimately reclaiming the life that had been cruelly snatched from him. Detective Adrian Cole paid us a visit one afternoon. He seemed different, less burdened. I wanted to express my gratitude, he stated. Testifying against Tristan was the most challenging thing I've ever done, but it was unequivocally the right thing. I can finally sleep soundly at night. How is your family coping? I asked. My parents no longer speak with me, he admitted. They believe I betrayed Tristan. However, My children understand. They are proud of me. And that is what truly matters. We shook hands, two men who had both chosen the arduous path of justice over easier alternatives. November arrived, marking Oliver's 17th birthday. We celebrated at home, just the four of us, with cake, presents, and laughter. Morgan presented him with a new Braille reader, and Paige gave him a subscription to audiobooks. My gift was distinct: an acceptance letter. Oliver had applied to a summer program for blind students with an interest in law and advocacy, and he had been accepted. He ran his fingers over the Braille, reading it twice to confirm its reality. "I got in," he exclaimed. "You got in?" He embraced me, tears streaming down his face. "I'm going to help people, Dad, kids like me, so they don't feel utterly helpless." "I know you will, son," I assured him. That evening, as I sat on the porch, Morgan joined me. "We made it," she murmured softly. "We truly did." "Do you ever contemplate what might have transpired if the system had completely failed, if Tristan had walked free?" I mused. "Every single day, but it didn't. And here we are," she replied, resting her head on my shoulder. "I'm so proud of you. You could have handled this the Delta Force way, but you chose a different path." I had something far more vital to safeguard than my pride. I had a family to instill values in. From inside, Oliver's laughter echoed. A sound he shared with Paige over the phone. Copper was curled contentedly at his feet. The house felt warm, secure, and vibrant. Justice had been served. The individuals who harmed my son were incarcerated. The mastermind behind it all would perish in prison. More significantly, my son had learned that advocating for what is right, even when challenging or terrifying, is always profoundly worthwhile. And that invaluable lesson surpassed any potential revenge I might have sought. The nightmare had ended. The healing process remained ongoing, but we were progressing together as a family. Now I pose a question to you. When confronted with injustice, when you witness suffering, do you avert your gaze, or do you stand up? Share your thoughts in the comments and let me know your viewing location. What genres of stories resonate with you most? Thrillers, epic revenge sagas, tales of family betrayal, or narratives of emotional justice? Inform me, and I will bring those stories directly to you. Please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe, as we have more enthralling epic revenge stories with clear, deeply satisfying conclusions headed your way. Take care until our next encounter.